Hi, welcome back to Imperium Learning. In the previous video, I showed you how to combine if functions with either or functions or and functions. In this video now, what I'd like to do is introduce you to a range of text functions. Now the thing is, before I start giving you demonstrations in Excel, what I'd like to do is just go through this property transaction dataset for a couple of minutes to help you make sense of it and make sure that you understand what each column refers to. So just starting in the B column then, we have the price paid. That should be fairly self-explanatory. It's simply the amount that was paid for the property on that particular day. Now the next three columns after this are not actually data that I downloaded from the internet, and in particular from the Land Registry website, because the rest of this dataset was downloaded from the Land Registry website. As you can see, just starting in the C column, we have this column which says rental value and then on a monthly basis. Now the rental value simply means how much rent you can charge on the property per month. Then after that we have the rental value on an annual basis. That's simply the rental value on a monthly basis multiplied by 12. And then finally we have this column which says rental yield, and that's simply the rental value on an annual basis divided by the amount of money that was paid for the property. After that we have the postcode then. All this does is just let us know which particular area of London the property is situated in. After that we have the property type. Now as you can see, there's only one letter in each cell, but don't worry, they just represent some very simple and easy to remember property types. So for example, the F stands for flat, the S stands for semi-detached, the T stands for terraced, O stands for other, and I think we also have D in this column, and D just stands for detached. Then after that we have the new build. That's simply posing the question whether or not the property is a new build. N stands for no, and Y stands for yes. Finally then we have the estate type. L stands for leasehold, and F stands for freehold. Now the task that I actually want to do in order to show you how these various text functions work concerns the postcode column. Because just going down this column, just to start with the postcodes that begin with the letter E, the fact that the postcode begins with the letter E lets us know that the property is situated in East London. Then just going down, we can see that we then have EC, and that just stands for Eastern Central. Then below that we have postcodes with the letter N in them. That simply means North London. Then we have NW, that means Northwest London, and so on and so forth. So they let us know which particular area of London the property is situated in. Now the thing is, in a couple of videos' time, I'm going to be setting you a practical pivot table exercise which involves asking questions such as, in which area of London, e.g. north, south, west, was the most property sold? Or alternatively, which area of London has the highest average property price transaction based on the data in this spreadsheet? That kind of thing. So in order to answer questions like that, we first have to be able to use text functions to be able to lop off most of these individual postcodes so that we're only left with the beginning of the postcode, which lets us know which area of London the property is located in. So what we can do first and foremost is we can just copy and paste all these postcodes into another worksheet, because we're going to be doing quite a lot of different text functions, and so we're going to need a lot of blank space. So just go to cell G1, hold down Control, hold down Shift, and press the down arrow key, and then what you're going to want to do is hit Control C to copy, hold down Control and page down, go to cell B2, and then hit Control V. So now that I've done this, what I want to do is just introduce you to 4 new text functions. So the first one that I want to introduce you to is the left function. Now what this function does is, once you've chosen a cell which contains a particular piece of text, what it will do is it will return back the number of characters in that cell that you specify. So just for example, just looking in cell B3, which is the first postcode, I might be interested in finding the first 2 characters in the postcode. Now I know this seems very simple right now, but just bear with me. So if I type in equals left and open the brackets, you can see that the first argument that I have to choose is the cell containing the piece of text. So in this case, I'm going to choose cell B3, then press comma, and then I can specify the number of characters that I want it to return. Now just bear in mind that the left function works from left to right, and it indexes each character in the cell from left to right. So just for example, the letter E, that's going to be the first character, the number 1, that's going to be the second character, the space between the number 1 and the number 6, that's going to be the third character, and so on and so forth. So if I just press the number 2 and close the brackets, I should expect this left function to return the result E1. And as you can see, it does. Now the second function that I want to show you is the right function. Now the right function works exactly like the left function, except unlike the left function, it works from right to left, and what's more, it indexes characters in a cell from right to left. So just taking cell B3 as an example, the letter R would be the first character, the letter G would be the second character, and the number 6 would be the third character, and so on and so forth. So if I wanted to return the last character of cell C3, then all I would have to do is type in equals right and open the brackets. Then for the text argument, I would just choose cell C3, then I'd press comma, and then I'd press the number 1, and I'd close brackets. And as you can see, it returns the number 1, which is the last character in cell C3. Now, what I want to do, because this is going to be quite important for being able to do a complicated text function that we're going to do in the next video, I want to get you in the habit of being able to wrap functions inside of other functions. So an example of that would be like how I showed you to put an AND function or an OR function inside of the IF function in the video before this. So if we think about cell D3 for a second, we can see that it's the result of doing two steps. The first is using a left function to pick the first two characters in cell B3, and then we use a right function in order to choose the last character in cell C3. So what I want to do now is wrap a left function inside of a right function to get the same result as cell D3. Now, I know this might seem a bit confusing now, but once again, just bear with me. So just type in equals right and open the brackets. And then for this text argument, what you're going to want to do is type in left and open the brackets. And then for this text argument, you're going to want to choose cell B3 and press comma. Then for the number of characters, we're going to choose the number 2, because that's what we did in cell C3 for the left function. Close the brackets and press comma to complete the first argument of the right function. And then for the number of characters, you press 1 and close brackets. And this should produce the exact same result as cell D3. Now, in a few minutes, I'm just going to explain to you why I did this, but first I just want to quickly introduce you to two other text functions. So the first one is really simple. It's called the len function, and the len function simply tells you how many characters are in a cell. So for example, cell B3 would have a total of 6 characters in it. So in order to use the len function, you would type in equals len and open the brackets. Let's just choose cell B3 for a second and close the brackets. And as you can see, it produces the number 6. Now the final text function that I want to introduce you to is the replace function. So what that allows you to do is to pinpoint a particular part of a cell and then replace that piece of text with another piece of text of your choice. So just as an example, let's say I wanted to replace the last 3 characters in cell B3 with the word dog. So what I would do first and foremost is I would type in equals replace and open the brackets. Then what I would do is I would choose cell B3 and press comma. Then for the second argument, which says start number, what I would do is I would press the number 4, because if you think about it, the number 6 in the postcode is the 4th character in the cell. Then for the number of characters, I would press 3, and so that would remove the last 3 characters, 6, G, and R. And then finally, for the new text, what I'd do is I'd open speech marks and type in dog. And so just closing the brackets then, you can see that we now get E1 dog. Now, just going back into the cell for a second, if I wanted to get rid of it, or get rid of the last few characters, let's say I wanted to start on the 3rd character, remove the last 4 characters, and let's say I didn't actually want to replace it with any text, all I would have to do then is just use 2 speech marks next to each other, and then so when I press enter then, all it would say is E1. Okay, so that can be useful in certain circumstances, and we're going to see how using just 2 speech marks by themselves can prove very useful. So just going back to why I'm showing you these functions, and why I asked you to wrap this left function inside of a right function. The reason is that we're going to have to use a very complicated replace function to solve the issue of these postcodes. And we want this replace function to only produce the letters at the beginning of the postcode that denote the general area that the property is located in. So just as an example, just scrolling down now, E for East London, then we have EC for Eastern Central, N for North London, NW for Northwest, SE for Southeast, SW for Southwest, W for West, and finally WC for Western Central. So because of that, we have a range of areas. Some of the areas only have 1 letter to denote the area, other areas have 2 letters to denote the area, and of these areas that have 2 letters in the postcode to characterize them, the problem is some of them have different letters. So you have WC, the second letter would be C. You have SE, the second letter would be E. You also have, for example, SW, the second letter is W. So what we need to do is use a replace function which incorporates the left function, the right function, the len function, an if function, and an or function. And because all of this is complicated to explain and will probably take about 10 to 15 minutes to actually do in Excel, what I'm going to do is conclude the video here, and I'm going to show you how you can solve this particular problem using one very complicated formula in Excel. So see you in that next video.